Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, thousands of Ghanaians and dozens of leaders from across the continent turn out to welcome back John Mahama as he's sworn in as president in the country's capital. He wastes no time in setting out at least an inkling of his game plan for reform, promising a shake-up to combat a once-in-a-generation economic crisis. Also, there is an impatient backlash from African governments over claims by French President Emmanuel Macron that they didn't say thank you for military collaboration over the years. Chad's foreign minister slams the remarks as being contemptuous. And there's a scramble to find a new prime minister in Sao Tome and Principe after the president dismisses the government, accusing it and its head of bad leadership, no-shows and ineptitude. But first, Ghana's new president promised to reset the nation as he was sworn in on Tuesday. It's not John Mahama's first turn in the hot seat. He ran the country for 4 years prior to his predecessor, Nana Akufo-Addo's 2 terms in office. And Mahama's landslide comeback in December's vote was carried by voters' hopes for change after a tough economic chapter for the country.
The expectations are very high. Looking at the margins that were given to John Mahama, the votes that he got, it clearly shows that Ghanaians are expecting more. It is said that to whom much is given, much is expected. And we expect him to work to bring this economy back on track.
So I'm expecting that whatever he has said, he comes and then does it and even does more than what we are expecting.
For the past 8 years, we've suffered in terms of our standard of living, our cost of living and everything. So with this new government, we want to build a Ghana that will be better for everybody.
Well, as well as a sea of supporters at the swearing-in ceremony in Accra, which also saw Nana Akufo-Addo become the country's first female vice president. Around 20 heads of state from across Africa turned out, including those from Nigeria, Senegal, Kenya and Burkina Faso. Now, not least in the mix was also our Justice Baidu, who joins us now from Ghana. Justice, give us a sense of what your take was on the mood at the swearing-in today.
This was one of the most attended swearing-in ceremonies under this Fourth Republic. It's one of the descriptions that some commentators have given it. As early as 4 a.m., people who had traveled from across the country were already gathering at the Independence Square, the historic location where Ghana has traditionally sworn in its president. It goes to show the enormous expectations that people have on this new president, with the huge numbers that turned out, people coming in from all walks of life, wishing the new government all well on its first day in office.
There's also a lot of very expectations of tangible delivery, and Mahama also used this this gathering to set out some pretty specific insights into his game plan. Before we come back to you, let's have a listen to what he had to say.
We'll focus our initial efforts on 4 critical areas. The first is economic restoration and stabilization of the macroeconomic environment. The second is the improvement of the business and investment environment to ensure that Ghana is once again open for business. The third is governance and constitutional reforms. And the final, but not the least, is accountability and the fight against corruption.
So hearing that, break it all down for us, Justice. What does this mean in terms of the priorities moving forward, and why did he choose those as being his priorities?
He did primarily because these are some of the top issues that were on the heart of voters going into this crucial election. Mr. Mahama, as you said, is not new to the presidency, and he lost power in 2016 mainly because of some of these issues. And the Akufo-Addo government that has just gone out of office today promised to crack down corruption and improve living conditions for people. There are several polls that have indicated that many people were unhappy with the economic conditions, the direction of the government, what they thought to be high levels of public corruption, especially in the way that government services are delivered. And so Mr. Mahama having won by this margin, it has never happened to his party, the National Democratic Congress, also having won close to 2/3 majority parliament in a majority of seats in the country's parliament, is bent on doing this. He's not under no illusion at all about the challenges that exist. The economic crisis, inflation is still high, and an energy crisis that exists in the country. But he seemed to enjoy a lot of goodwill from across the country to be able to tackle some of these challenges head on right from day one.
And is that goodwill reflected across the continent as well? There was a pretty good turnout from heads of state from across Africa. Anything indicating what foreign policy might look like under Mahama from the leaders who chose to be there at his inauguration?
A lot of significant things happened today, and not least that Ghana has its first female vice president, but then also the sort of leaders that turned up, including the junta leading Burkina Faso, which is also Ghana's neighbor to the north. It's a country that is being destabilized by Islamist terrorism, which has been ravaging in several parts of West Africa. And there's a feeling that a lot of these leaders have come in to sort of share in the goodwill that Ghana seemed to have or enjoy in bringing nations together. There was representation from Kenya, West African superpower, Nigeria, and Rwanda. It goes to show, as several analysts have suggested, that they all are looking to tap into this new direction that Ghana has chosen, hoping to bring itself closer to this new government and hopefully to be able to share in the sort of security, especially for countries like Burkina Faso and even Niger, that is also currently led by junta, to be able to protect themselves or to be able to align themselves to the sort of place that Ghana wants to head over the next 4 years that Mr. Mahama would be in office.
Thanks very much. Justice Baidu there for us as Ghana enters a new political chapter with the swearing in of John Mahama as president. Now, there's been a swift backlash against France's president, who may have put his foot into it once again with his African allies. Emmanuel Macron's come under fire and been accused of neocolonialism, paternalism, and showing contempt for West African sovereignty after complaining to a group of French ambassadors that Africa forgot to say thank you to Paris for France's anti-terror military deployments in the Sahel over the years. Now, Caitlin Kelly tells us more.
West Africa have forgotten to thank France. That's the comment from President Emmanuel Macron that has sparked a strong reaction across the region over the past 24 hours. Speaking at a conference in Paris, the French president said that France was owed more gratitude from some African countries, adding that their sovereignty was in part due to the French military presence in the region, particularly when it came to combating extremism. Unsurprisingly, due to the ongoing and slightly heated debate around France's military presence in the region, this has sparked backlash. The Chadian government have come out and say that Macron is showing a contemptuous attitude towards Africa and Africans. And in Senegal, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko has said the comments are not true and that this is a mischaracterization of France's military role in the region. In France itself, La France Insoumise, the political party of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, have also come out and said that Macron has exhibited a neo-colonial paternalism, a sentiment that's also being echoed here in Senegal on social media.
A new wind is blowing in Africa. It's a wind of democracy, a wind of sovereignty. It's no longer a wind of neo-colonialism. It's time to call an end to this game. That's what Emmanuel Macron needs to understand today, the condescending France, the combative France, the ever-present France. In reality, that version of France needs to rethink its approach, because as it stands, it's a watered-down version of itself.
Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko also denied Macron's claims that there'd been some sort of negotiations when it came to the military withdrawal of French troops in the region. Both Chad and Senegal have tried to redefine and move away from the French military support here in West Africa. Chad have severed ties completely with the French defence, and in Senegal they've made claims that they will close the military bases here in the country as they try to reshape the relationship with the previous colonial power.
Caitlin Kelly there for us in Senegal. Now, Niger is struggling to rein in attacks from terror groups who've ramped up attacks in the wake of instability that followed from the country's 2023 coup. Last week, dozens of people were killed in a string of attacks in the Tillabéri region in the west. Our team tells us more.
Rural Tillabéri has become a no-go zone for many. ISIS and Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups are driving thousands of Nigerians from their homes. Their attacks, researchers say, have surged by over 20% in 2024 compared to last year.
Chimchimi. I couldn't even tell you how many people from our community have been killed to this day. In our area, it started with them demanding our livestock. My family and I decided to leave early. After we left, much worse attacks occurred.
Livestock farming and fishing are the backbone of livelihoods in this region. They have completely stopped in some areas. Displaced people seeking refuge on city outskirts rely on state support and the uneven presence of NGOs.
Before insecurity forced us to take refuge here, we used to grow millet. Some of our children were involved in trade, and others even went to look for gold. After the rainy season, we could grow beans, cassava, and also maize.
The economic slowdown fuels a vicious cycle. Terrorist groups take advantage of the growing poverty in the Sahel to recruit new members. The only solution to break out of this spiral is the development of the affected areas.
We need to think about both security and development, to establish development and meet the needs of populations that are experiencing extreme inequality and poverty. The security response must go in hand with development initiatives.
Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger pinned their hopes on their alliance of Sahel states to deliver a military and economic solution, but progress has been limited so far.
Well, port officials in Abidjan say that a ship carrying 20,000 tonnes of potentially explosive ammonium nitrate that's moored outside of the Ivorian city poses no danger. The cargo had been refused entry into other ports. Authorities allowed the Barbados-flagged ship, it's currently abroad, to dock in on Monday after determining that all safety conditions had been met. Campaigners had earlier flagged concerns about the condition of the ammonium nitrate. The chemical compound was behind a devastating explosion in Beirut's port in 2020, causing a fireball in which 220 people were killed. And the president of Sao Tome and Principe has dismissed the prime minister and his government, accusing them of ineptitude and institutional disloyalty. Laurent Berstecker tells us more.
The decision was announced by decree and published on the presidency's Facebook page, citing the government's inability to provide solutions to existing problems and the prime minister's frequent and prolonged absences from the country. The president of Sao Tome and Principe dismissed the government of Patrice Trovoada on Monday. Taken by surprise, the prime minister denounced a violation of the constitution and said he had challenged the decision in court.
We are asking the Constitutional Court to urgently rule on this matter, because this is a serious situation. This decision was motivated by political interests.
It was an unexpected clash between the two former allies and members of the same political party, which could plunge Sao Tome and Principe into a full-blown crisis. Since gaining independence in 1975, the small African archipelago has faced a series of power grabs, with the latest coup attempt thwarted by the army in 2022. Since then, President Carlos Villanova has been accused of placing allies and loyalists in positions of power. And while the exact reasons behind the prime minister's dismissal remain unclear, any lingering trust between the two men now seems to have given way to a bitter rivalry.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, though, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.